We're live. What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Forever Self-Employed podcast, or what used to be the Forever Self-Employed podcast. This is a regeneration. This is season 2, episode 1, if you will. And we are joined with a special guest. We have Mike Vidan here with us. Mike, how's it going, man?
It's going very well, Justin. Thank you for having me on season 2, episode 1. I'm looking forward to the new season.
Now, I'm sure a lot of people that are subscribed to this channel don't know who you are, Mike. So do you mind giving us a little backstory?
I am confused by that question. Because you said there might be people that don't know who I am. Clearly, as you can see, I am the undisputed YouTube pressure washing champion. It kind of goes without saying that most of your viewers probably know who I am. But if you don't, I've got a little channel called All About Pressure Washing. I own a pressure washing business down in Savannah, Georgia. I've owned it for about 20 years. And really, that's about who I am. I got some kids. I got a wife. And I make some YouTube videos.
Excellent, man. Excellent. So the goal of this is today's topic basically is we're going to be talking about how to build $1 million pressure washing business, but just business in general, because those key principles really go into multiple different types of industries and really the foundational pieces that you put together, as well as we want to talk about some fun topics today, Mike, some things that maybe you haven't talked about on the channel yet before. So with that being said, first and foremost, how long have you been in business for?
Over 20 years now, going on 21, actually going on 22.
22 years, man. That's incredible. So take us back to the beginning, Mike. How did you get into your pressure washing business?
Yeah, so that's kind of a unique story. Probably not like, a lot of folks probably, don't really plan on getting into this business. It's not like a childhood dream. We don't aspire to, be fireman, policeman, pressure washer. But I was a corporate guy in sales for mine. I graduated from the Citadel in Charleston. It's a military school. Went into outside sales for a little bit. And then I was, we'd moved to Savannah for one of my jobs. And I was working out at a gym, had met some guys. One of the guys who was in the finance world, he was an investment banker. And every once in a while, he would come in the gym in the morning. We'd go really early, 5:30, 6 a.m., just to get it out of the way early. Excuse me. And he'd come in wet and dirty sometimes. And I never really said anything. And then one time I was like, dude, why are you wet and dirty? And he goes, well, I own a pressure washing business and my employee didn't show up. And so I had to go take care of stuff. And I said, oh, that sucks. And went about my day. And so, we became pretty good friends. And then at one point he comes in and he goes, hey, I'm moving to Virginia. I got a promotion with the bank that I work for. And I'm going to move on up there. And just a fluke, a whim, I said, what are you doing with the pressure washing business? And he said, I don't know. I'm probably just going to sell off the equipment. And immediately one of our other friends, who is probably one of the wealthiest people that I know, said to me, Mike's going to buy it. And I said, Mike's going to buy a pressure washing business. He goes, yeah, you need to buy it. He goes, with your sales ability, with your marketing, you need to jump on this. I think you could really take it to the next level. Insulting Craig, who had the business, and kind of putting me on the spot. So long story short, I ended up buying the business. I went home, told my wife, I said, yeah, listen, I'm going to buy a pressure washing business. And she goes, you're going to do what? She goes, what do you know about pressure washing? I was like, nothing. What do you know about running your own business? I don't know anything really about running like a legitimate business. And she said, and I said, but Greg told me that I needed to buy it. And she goes, okay. Because she knew if he said that, it was a good idea, and we were going to be doing something good. So as it turns out, it turned out to be a very lucrative business. Long term. Initially, it wasn't that great, but it was probably one of the best decisions that I'd ever made in my life.
So how old were you whenever you made the jump into buying this business and starting it?
Well, I'm not very good at math. So if you have a calculator, I'm 47 now, and I've had the business for 21 years.
47, 21, we're on the spot, so it makes it a little bit harder. Was it?
Yeah, 26? It's really difficult, but I was much younger than I am now, so we'll just go with that.
All right, 26, I think is what it was.
Okay.
Awesome. So, Mike, when you purchased your business, you did it a little bit different than what a lot of people do. You you didn't work in the business first. You had somebody who was already employed with it. And what did that guy give you any work as well? Did he give you any contract?
Yeah. So all he did, I'm going to get rid of my,
Yeah. I
I'm
can
going to
see
get
it's
rid of my,
heavy. It's weighing down the shoulder,
it
man.
is, it hurts, but it is what it is. Um,
It's hard being the YouTube pressure washing champion.
It is. There's a weight on my shoulder, and now it's gone. But so yeah, so there was a guy that came that came with the business, and he was a good guy. Limited English. He was from Serbia. Was in the Serbian army under Slobodan Milosevic. And I'm not going to get into any of that, but if you know your history, that's not a good guy to work for. So, I mean, anything after that was pretty good. So I kind of, having my first employee, not being a mass murdering dictator was a good thing. So I, anyway, he came with the business. I did get a bunch of business back then. All they did was commercial flat work. So it was sidewalks, dumpster pads, receiving areas. And he had a handful of accounts. I think when I bought, I know when I bought the business, he was grossing about $45,000 a year. So it was not a big business. I think he had one guy that was doing like 2 or 3 days a week, basically all night long out there grinding on these sidewalks and stuff like that. So I did have a decent foundation going into it. And that was one of the main reasons that I bought it. I probably wouldn't have bought it if there was just equipment, because I wouldn't have known really where to start.
Right. And so would you give any advice to people out there who would look to acquire a business the same way that you did? Did you look at this guy's books? Did you take him at his word? Like, what was there, the transference of like contacts? Did he hand you like a little book with all the phone numbers in it?
Well, there was a little everything was on paper back then. There was not, and he was a banker, right? So he had meticulous books, and had I known what I was looking at, it probably would have meant something. But the bottom line is, I knew that he was, doing okay with the business, and I knew the guy who was my mentor, and like I said, a phenomenal business person. He was like, "You need to do this." So I probably didn't do as much vetting as I should have, but for anybody that wasn't in a situation like this, where you kind of like, it was not like I had the keys of the kingdom handed to me, because it was $45,000, which is nothing. It was some equipment that was old, an employee who I didn't know. So there was a lot of unknown variables, but I trusted these guys, and it turned out to be okay. I would recommend, and I've sold multiple businesses since then, and the vetting process, going through the books, making sure everything makes sense, because you can cook books. There's a lot that goes into it. And so by no means would I suggest doing what I did. I got lucky, but definitely do your due diligence and really, really take it seriously. Not that I didn't take it seriously. I mean, I did, but I didn't go as deep as I probably should have or could have.
Sweet. So I want to kind of keep unfolding the story here, Mike. So you acquired the business, you had one employee. How long did that employee work out for? And then when did you have to hire on another one?
Yeah. So that guy, this was so long ago. He probably lasted, I don't know, 4 or 5 months. And he'd been a pretty long-term employee. He actually had to move. And I think it was, immigration, green card type stuff. He was on a work visa, and it would expire.
Government wanted him back.
What's that?
So the government wanted him back, like
the Serbian government was looking for him, apparently. Right. But so I ended up, and this is one of the things like I've been thinking about a lot, and I was actually in the process of doing a new video for my channel about employees and hiring and some of the things that you should and shouldn't do, because employees are the face of your business, and employees can have either a huge impact for the positive or a tremendous negative impact. And we'll talk about that, I guess, either in my video or later in this. But I think so. After his name was Beggy. After he left, I hired Buster.
Beggy and Buster.
Beggy to Buster. Buster was a former employee of the guy that I worked for. It was his brother-in-law. They kind of butted heads, and they both decided it was best to go their own ways. Neither had a whole lot of good things to say about the other at that point in time. And I was desperate because I had a full-time job. I had a new baby at that time, and it was it was one of those things where out of desperation you make decisions, and that's never a good place to make decisions. But I called this guy up, and at that time he was running his own pressure washing business called Buster Wash, which I don't know how successful it was, but when I offered him a job, he immediately came, and he did good, right? Like he did a great job. He knew the business, he knew the accounts, he knew the expectations of the customers. He met those expectations. Every employee, for the most part, has got idiosyncrasies, if you will, that either make them long term or short term. And he lasted for quite some time before we went in different directions.
Excellent. So kind of staying on the topic of employees, how is obviously you acquired Buster, that was his name? Beggy. Well, you acquired Beggy with the business, but Buster came because you knew somebody. How is where you find employees kind of changed, or has it up until this point?
Well, yeah, no, the evolution of how I hire has changed tremendously. And that goes back to what I was talking about how employees can be so important. Well, employees are one of the most important parts of your business, but finding the right employees. Back then, I didn't pay probably as well as I should have. And when you're not paying top dollar, you're not going to get top dollar performers. And so that was something that took me a tremendous amount of a long time to figure out. And during that time frame, that long time frame, it was it was a tough go. You're paying people anywhere and I don't even want to say it on here because it's $12 to $15 an hour, and that's what you get. You get $12 to $15 an hour effort. And since then, obviously, we've increased that wage significantly, which has increased the caliber of employee that is willing to come and do this type of work. It's tough work, as you guys know that are watching.
Right, absolutely. So I was going to ask you about the biggest mistake that you've made in your business. Would you say that that's along the lines of one of the bigger mistakes that you've made?
Oh, 100%. If I could go back in time, I would start paying people $20 starting and just be done with it, and train them up and incentivize them, bonuses, time off, all the things that we do now in order to keep these guys motivated, incentivized, and moving in the right direction. Because that by far is the biggest mistake that I made for the most part is not compensating as I should have been.
Right. Because I'm sure the downtime in between losing an employee and training up another one is really you probably lose a lot of money and just a lot of time.
Well, and then that's the other component is the training aspect. The time spent training people is so important because, and it's expensive, right? Like just like what you said, downtime and training, that's not a whole lot of money coming in. And that's what we need in a business to be profitable, obviously. And so if you make hasty decisions on who you're hiring, and you're basically filling a slot, you're using a warm body as opposed to somebody that's qualified, then you're probably going to be wasting quite a bit of time during the training process multiple times, when you could be just paying somebody accordingly, training them up and getting them in the position and out there making money.
Right. Now, Mike, so kind of a little bit different from the hiring aspect, but more towards biggest mistakes that you've made. I know a lot of people, whenever they first start their business, they underprice their services. Did you ever make that mistake in your business? Did you ever kind of undervalue what you brought?
100%. And if so, back in the day before there was, your Facebook groups and, various means of communicating with other professionals, we had forums. Now, all you young people, you don't know what these are, but these are basically I don't even know, boards that you go and you type stuff. And so there's actually a lot of guys, old guys like me, that are still around. And a lot of these guys could probably speak to this because I was the young gun coming in thinking I knew everything. And as it turns out, I didn't know everything. I thought I did. And I probably wouldn't have liked me now back then. But I used to believe, and I don't believe it anymore. I used to believe that you could make up in volume for price. So I would say, well, I've got 2 or 3 guys working for me. We can go out and we can charge, $200 for a 2,000 square foot house. And, if we can do 4 or 5 of those a day, and I've got multiple, I'm trying to justify in my head. But ultimately what I think it was I was undervaluing what the service is that we provide. I was embarrassed or ashamed of maybe saying, yeah, it's going to be $400. And then, in my mind, maybe I was thinking, well, we're just pressure washing. It's not really worth it. I don't want to but now I'm like, yeah, it's going to be, 400, 500, 600, whatever the case is. So that would be one of my biggest points for anybody new or anybody. Raise your prices, right? And there's a threshold, right? There's a delicate balance of price versus closing jobs, right? If you're closing, 80%, then your prices are too low. So raise your prices, your close rate's going to go down, but you're going to make more money. So that's one of the biggest things that I did wrong, was thinking that volume was king and I would make up it. But no, double your prices right now, double your profits right now, and see what happens.
I think that's one of the cool parts about like YouTube and the whole deal that we have now, because like we can talk about this sort of thing and guys can listen to it and they can go, you know what, I'm probably not charging as much, or I'm in the same mental headspace as where Mike was at,
Yeah.
So that's one of the beautiful pieces. And I completely agree. It's a scale, right? It's all about how many jobs am I landing? How many jobs do I have coming in, and really finding a good balance for yourself, because at the end of the day, you don't want to land every job because then you're leaving money on the table, but you also can't lose every job because then all your ad spend is out the window. So for anybody out there struggling with that, you want to find a middle ground. But kind of bringing it back to the employees a little bit, Mike, do you have like a worst employee you've ever had? I know you have a short series, but can you just talk to us about one of those experiences?
Yeah, I could tell you many stories about many horrible employees. And what's crazy is, and this goes back to the hiring process, not hiring the right people. And some of that has to do with price, some of it doesn't. But when you hire somebody and they're a problem, they're an issue, right? There's constantly something going on in their life that's impacting their work life. And you let it go, right? And I've done that so often. And I like, I'm a pretty generous guy. I try to help people. I'd like to give people the benefit of the doubt. And I've been burned so many times. It at one point made me pretty cynical. And then I was just like, like everybody. But so tip 1 is, if there's a problem, get rid of them immediately, because they're going to continue to be a problem. No, second chances are okay, right? For tardiness, for things like that, but not stealing, not lying, not, saying you're working and then I roll up and you're parked, at the back of the apartment community smoking weed with the maintenance guy, right? Those are not things that are okay. Those are things that I should not have allowed to happen. Those are things that we should have, just moved on. But I was hiring out of desperation and, like you said, downtime. So I'm like, okay, well, okay, just don't smoke so much weed. And so now I've got like a 0 tolerance policy on all bullshit, right? Like 0 tolerance. Everybody gets a chance. And after that, like, these guys, they've got a good thing going, and I want them to continue to have a good thing going. And a good thing going means they're being productive. They're being efficient. They're making me money. They're showing it up. I don't have to babysit. I'm not a babysitter. I used to be a babysitter. I made a commitment to myself about 3 years ago that I am no longer being a babysitter, right? I am eliminating all stress from my life. And that's one of the reasons I sold my landscape business, because I was done being a babysitter. And I eliminated a tremendous amount of stress. So your question, worst employees, and I do have a series of shorts about that. So,
just give me some generalities though. You made a good reference to, if they're a problem early, then usually you just need to cut them because they're going to continue to be a problem.
So I had a guy that was always an issue. He was a good worker, right? He did a good job. And so that was the rub, right? It's like, okay, what's that balance, right? It's like that close ratio balance. What's the balance? And finally, I figured out the balance, and it was he had to leave, and it was not a good thing. But I let him come back multiple times, right? Like, I'd be desperate, and I'd call him, and he'd come back, right? So that's on me, and I take full responsibility. But I gave a loan for a vehicle one time to an employee. I had a vehicle he needed when he couldn't get back back and forth from work. He couldn't get a loan at a bank, and I said, okay, I've got this truck. I'll take it out of your paycheck. I didn't charge interest. It was just basically he was going to pay off the truck. And I think I gave him like 3 or 4 years or something like that. And it was not an expensive truck. And he got hammered, drove this truck down a dirt road, flipped it like 3 times. He got messed up, fortunately not like he was just cut up and whatnot. The truck was just mauled. I wish I had pictures to share, but it was a complete disaster. And after he was up and moving again, I was like, okay, well, you realize you still have to pay this truck off. And he was like, what? I got to pay it off? And I'm like, well, yeah, it was yours. And he goes, but I can't drive it anymore. He goes, I need the insurance money so I can buy a new truck. And I was like, well, that's not how it works. And so he ended up, and of course I worked with him, and he was able to continue to pay out of his, his paycheck for some of it. But yeah, so that was one. He's also one that had, stolen a bunch of equipment, tried to sell some of my lawn care equipment, and, got busted because he was wearing a company shirt, things like that. And that was the final straw. And I was like, okay, obviously, this is not
so there had been like previous malfeasances. This wasn't the first time that an issue had arisen.
Yeah. And I mean, but it was every single day there was something. And it was like I was spending more time dealing with employee issues than I was running my business. And that can have such an impact, right? Bad employees will hurt your business more than you'll ever know. Just your reputation, your business reputation. If you've got people out there that aren't, being good stewards of your name, it's going to impact your business. And it takes years to make up for those types of things, right? If a customer has a bad experience, they don't care if it's with some dirtbag that's, shouldn't be working for me. And that's my fault, not theirs. But it's still all American. It's not, the kid that was, or the guy that was, being a jerk or did a bad job. It's my company that gets the bad review. So,
right. It always falls back on you. I want to kind of circle back a little bit. I had a comment on here. You guys can keep charging your high rates and I'll keep taking your job. So I kind of want to double back, because anybody who's afraid to kind of raise prices is always afraid of the guys who are going to come in and undercut them. So let's kind of speak to that a little bit, Mike. And
and this is a very common, I don't want to say, well, and I don't know Petey, and I'm sure he's a great guy and he's got a great business. But I highly encourage you, Petey, not to be cheap, right? Like there's more work out there than anybody can handle. The market's oversaturated. I can't do this. I can't do that. That's bullshit. It is. You are more than able to charge whatever that ever you want. And Petey, honestly, if you're in my market, I'm not worried about you taking my jobs, right? Because you can take all the jobs that I don't want. And I think that's probably what most legitimate businesses, how they feel is not everybody's our customer, right? And the people that are price shopping are not my customer. I don't care about them. They can go pay you $99 or $100 or $200, whatever it is. That's fine. Make your money. You do you. And I wish you the best, right? No one's scared of somebody undercutting, right? I don't even think about it, right? My prices are based on my overhead, my costs, the equipment, my guys, how much money I want to make. That's the bottom line. That's what, I know what my costs are. I know what my break-even point is. And then from there, I determine how much I want to put in my bank account. And that's a lot. And so with that being said, I'm not worried about people undercutting me. Undercut me all you want. Take those customers because they're going to be a pain in the ass.
Right. I did a video on the channel, actually. Our biggest house wash that we ever landed, it was us and another company that had quoted the job. We quoted it for, it was like almost at $7,000 for all the work that they wanted done. The previous company had quoted it for just over $3,000. And they said, we don't trust the other company because that's way too cheap. Someone came in and quoted half what we quoted to do the exact same job. They went with us instead of the other company. So like Petey comes in and he goes, I can do this whole job for $2,500. Well, I don't trust you. So I'm going to pay these guys $7,000. And I agree completely to what you're saying, Mike. Our ideal customer is not a price shopper. So always keep in mind your ideal customer. Coming from the frame that someone's always undercutting me is a scarcity mindset. Like you had mentioned, there's more work out there than we could ever fulfill. And if you have your lead flow right, you are in the position, you're in the driver's seat to pick and choose what jobs you're going to take, how much you want to charge, because you know that there's more people coming right around the corner, you know?
Yeah.
So a couple of things for anybody out there who is afraid to raise prices because of guys like Petey that say that they're going to come in and steal their jobs for no money, right?
Yeah.
Because I think we could agree, Mike, you get a couple quotes and you got to look at what differentiates yourself from another company. And if you present yourself better and you talk about the service better and you're more well-informed and you present the quote to the customer better, like, who are you going to go with? You know what I mean? Because you're not a price shopper, right, Mike?
I don't even know what that means.
What is price shopping? Anyway, all right, sweet. I just wanted to touch on that because that's a huge thing for a lot of guys.
Right.
It's a sticking point for them. Let's talk about this too, Mike. You reached a point in your business, I believe it was 2020 or 2021, where you set a goal for yourself that you were going to raise prices across the board. Talk to us about what happened when you made the decision to do that within your business.
Right. And again, it comes back to that threshold that I was talking about, is when you push price, what you're doing is you are allowing your customers to choose who they want to work for, right? And ultimately, they're the ones that are making the choice anyway. So regardless of what your price is, if, just like you said, if you present yourself well, if your company's well respected, if your Google, My Business, I mean, people look at reviews, people look at all of these things, and these are very important things. And so, I decided there was multiple things that I decided that year. I wanted to double the size of my gross sales of the pressure washing business. I wanted to increase lawn care by like 20 or 30%. I can't remember which we did. I sold that, like I said. But what I ended up seeing was there was no decline in the amount of customers that we had or the jobs that we had. We were just making more money. And that was one of those like, oh, wow moments. Like, oh, wow, I wish I'd have done that 10 years ago. And I did do it 10 years ago when I finally realized, like, no, like, you know what? We should be compensated for what we're doing. Yeah, we're not doctors, we're not lawyers, but we're not just spraying water either. And that's a common misconception. There's a lot more to it. You got to have insurance. You got to be, you got to have your proper licensing for, your locality or wherever you are. And it's not like you can just go out and start doing stuff, because there is a lot of potential liability, and you need to protect yourself. You need to protect your business. You need to protect your customers, their property and things of that nature. So, it's just not cheap. So
one thing I do want to clarify for anybody who's listening, we're not just talking about throwing higher numbers at the customer. Like, this is more of a calculated approach. Like, Mike knows, what his close ratio is, and he knows what he's charging on services across the board, and he knows what he's landing. He knows what his numbers were last year. Like, this is a very targeted approach. This isn't like, oh, we're just going to go out there and price gouge and see how high we can get these jobs for. It is targeted and it's strategic, right, Mike?
Well, yeah, and price gouging would be something like there's a hurricane and there's limited amount of gas or bread and people raise prices, right? That is not the case for there's a million PDs out there that will do the job for a significant amount less than what I would be willing to wake up for. And so, with that being said, it doesn't matter what I charge. Everybody in America, at least, has the ability to make a decision for themselves, who they call, who they go with, right? Like, just because I say it's going to be $800 and someone else does it for $500, okay, go with the $500 guy if you want to. What I charge has zero impact on anybody else or the customer, right? But if I'm able to convey the value, convey the benefits, show them the professionalism, let them understand it's going to, you'll have a quote in probably under 2 minutes. You'll be able to schedule online. You'll be able to get updated on appointment times, all that. When we're done, after we do the job, and you get your pre-inspection email with, basically a property walkthrough with, anything that could potentially be wrong with your property. That shows up before we start working. There are things that we do, and lots of other folks do as well, that set us above the guy that rolls up in a pickup truck, pulling the stuff out the back, and he's got his jugs of bleach. And I'm not knocking that, right? Like, go out there and you got to start somewhere. But I'm not that guy, and I'm going to get paid, right? So I'm going to charge what I want to charge. The customer can pay if they want to pay. But again, yes, it is a calculated analysis based on all of those factors that you just talked about. And these decisions are not taken lightly. And yes, there is the opportunity that I raise my prices by X, and sales go down. And then you know what I do? I lower my prices and sales go back up. So, this is a business, and business is not an automated like type thing where you just know what's going to happen. You have to play. And if you don't play with various things, whether it's your marketing, whether it's your sales approach, whether it's your pricing, then you're going to be stagnant. You're going to be some old cranky guy in a pickup truck for the rest of your life, smelling like bleach. And that's cool if that's what you want to do. That's not what I want to do. And that's why I raise my prices. So.
Right. It's all about trying new things and making the proper adjustments when you get the feedback. So I think that's beautiful, as well as all the differentiating factors that you spoke about earlier, Mike. If you want to be a big company, you want to be a big player in your area, you need all the differentiating factors that Mike mentioned earlier in order to set yourself apart from the guys like, I hate to say Petey, but he made a comment like the guys like Petey are just going to come in and just be like, it's $99, I'm sure Pete is a great guy, but you made a comment about stealing.
Well, and he continued to. So,
yeah.
But, and again, like, and Petey, I apologize. All love goes to you, but like, you did, you threw it out there, and that is a common, I don't want to say misconception, because that's your business. You can do whatever you want, just like I can do whatever I want. Like you do you, like I said, and that goes for everybody. Like Diego just said, I'm the jugs of bleach guy, and that's awesome. And as you evolve and your business grows, I would assume that you're going to want to grow a little bit and invest in, tanks and hose reels and things that are going to make you more efficient, thus making you more profitable.
Right. Pickle Steve had a good comment, specifically because I know you have a differentiating opinion from other people, Mike. So what do you think about doing in-person quoting? Did you used to, when you first started doing in-person quoting, and how has that evolved until now?
Yeah. So when I first started, I absolutely did. I went to almost every residential job in person, because at that point we made a transition. And I'm not going to bore you with the story of the 2008, 2009 recession, where we were all commercial, like I was saying earlier. But we pivoted and we moved more towards residential. And so I had to learn how to quote. I had to learn, how long things took. So yeah. And I actually would go out and I would do the jobs, the residential jobs, just so, because I needed to understand how long things took. So therefore I could, determine how much we needed to charge, what was the chemical consumption, all of these things that come into play when we are, when we're giving our estimates. And so, after a while, I'm a busy guy. I've got a lot of stuff going on. The in-person quoting was becoming more than I was willing to tolerate, and technology had kind of caught up. And so I was able to use a bunch of different things that I'm sure a bunch of different guys use in order to quote remotely. And, for many, many years, I don't leave my office, or if I'm on the boat or doing whatever, I can be giving estimates, through here. I also use Responsibid, which is a great thing. If you guys are interested in that, I highly recommend you check that out. Yeah, remote quoting, in my opinion, saves a bunch of time. We live, and if you've watched my channel, I talk about the Amazon mentality, the Google mentality, and that is instant gratification. And if, you're out there working all week, and then you get home and you're doing all of your invoicing and, your follow-up emails and all of these things, and you're not, then you have one day, maybe you set aside on Thursdays, I'm going to go do my quotes. Well, if that's the case, you've lost 80% of them, because the guy that's doing it quicker, the guy that gets there the fastest, the guy that's the first to give them an estimate is the one that's going to get a job. Because at the end of the day, people Google, they find the person that they call first, which is usually in that top three. They call them. If the first guy doesn't answer, they call the second one. If that guy answers, gives them the price they like, boom, they schedule, and then they're going to get that money, not you. So in my opinion, estimating remotely, doing it as fast and efficiently as possible. And this is something that you're not going to, be able to do starting off, probably, because like I said, you're going to have to be like me. You're going to have to go out and understand, if you're out there working, then you probably have a pretty good understanding of how much, a 2,500 square foot ranch, that's got vinyl siding, is how long that's going to take you. And then you can give a pretty good price, regardless of how dirty it is. People always say, well, what if it's really dirty? Okay. And we live in a world of averages, right? Like some houses are not going to take any time at all. Others are going to take a tremendous amount of time. So, it's a game of averages, but it's a game of averages that works. But you have to have the data to back that up.
Right.
And if you're first starting out, I highly recommend you get out there and touch as many people as possible.
Right. And then you can see what your close percentage is in person. You can get that higher, lower,
Right.
depending on, how many jobs you want to land, and then make the transition.
And then it also goes back to your lead flow, right? If you're just starting out and you don't have that, I've been in business for a long time. I've got customers calling. I mean, the repeat customers is probably our largest segment of how we generate business. Next is Google, and then other things that we do. But if you've got a tremendous amount of lead flow, that will determine how much effort that you're going to put into customer acquisition, right? If I've got hundreds of leads coming in, I don't really need to be focusing entirely on, I'm always going to be focusing on generating new leads, but you have to have that lead flow in place, which allows you to charge more. It allows you to determine who you want to work for. And that also comes into play with everything that we've talked about thus far.
One of my favorite things that you've done, Mike, is you took something like quoting, you made it more convenient for yourself, and then you made it a strength for your business to quote the way that you do. So that's a beautiful thing. And anytime you can create that for yourself in your business, you can make it easier for yourself. You can streamline it for yourself and for your customer, and it ultimately becomes a strength for you.
Right. And we're actually going to be making it more convenient for everybody. Right, Justin?
Are you going to give them a sneak peek?
I'm going to give them a sneak peek.
Wait, let me preface this before you do anything.
Okay.
Me and Mike have been working on something for the past
too long.
It's been a long time. Okay. And I guess you can give them a little sneak peek into what it looks like, Mike.
I'm going to give them a very, very quick sneak peek because I'm not giving away too much, but this is like the sidebar screen. So we've developed an app and it's called Quote IQ. And it is, look at Dewey down there. So it's basically everything that you could possibly need in the palm of your hand as a pressure washing or a service business owner. We initially had developed it as just a quoting tool with, mapping and measuring and things of that nature, but it's evolved into basically having mix calculators to show you the different percentages and how you mix things. It's going to be a complete CRM with, everything. So this
invoicing.
It's going to be something cool. Invoicing, customer tracking, data tracking,
estimates, right? It's going to keep track of your numbers. It's going to show you it's going to give you your business at a screenshot, so you'll be able to know what your numbers are.
It could possibly have some inspection information in there that you can. This is.
Hey, look, it's going to be stacked. We're looking for some people to test it. We're going to test it before we go to market. So if any of you guys are interested, I don't even know. Maybe they could leave a comment on this.
Yes, True Seeker.
Yeah. I want to go to this question. Jake said, what if I am in competition with other local names? What would I do if I'm late to the party and already behind in the business race? So, Mike, if you had to restart your business and compete with yourself, what would that look like? How would you gain a competitive advantage over yourself?
Okay. Now, what I'm about to say, it has nothing to do with any of the things that like Justin and Aaron and myself are doing, right? Like everybody knows that's watching this. We have training courses that we sell. Okay. I've never taken a training course in my life that I've like paid for. In the corporate world, I've done more than I would care to imagine. But what we've put together is something that could really help people cut the learning curve and get up to speed. So to your question, Justin, is what would I do different? I'd educate myself so I didn't make all the mistakes that I made. I made so many stupid mistakes, right? I've spent so much money on stuff I shouldn't have bought. I spent money on marketing that just doesn't work. I spent money. It pains me to think about. I'll bet you $100,000 worth of money down the tubes of stuff that was just wrong. And if I could have that back, that would be awesome. And so I would recommend, Jake, invest in yourself, invest in your education. You don't have to buy anything from us. Get on YouTube, Google, right? Learn as much as you can possibly learn to be the most efficient at your craft, and get out there and work hard. And this is it. Don't care what everybody else is doing. If you see somebody in your market that's doing something right, copy them, right? If you see somebody that, is crushing it, right? Figure out what they're doing. How does their marketing look? What's their message, and replicate that, right? That's what I would say. I would say educate yourself and cut your learning curve. Don't make those mistakes.
And that's one of the benefits of being in the inner circle is like you get to be around the guys that are doing 20, 30, 40K in their business, and you get to see the back end, how they're landing jobs, the problems they're running into, how they're presenting quotes, just like all the best stuff. I'm not saying you guys have to join that. I'm just letting you know that's a great place to be if you want to be around the biggest guys and you want to see what they are doing. Another thing is you can make up for what you lack in knowledge about marketing and having some of the marketing sources that they have by just going door to door and being relentless and going where the money is and, offering everything you have. Right. Wouldn't you say that's a good way to go, Mike?
Yeah, 100%. And, like a prime example of this is I love bandit signs, right? And bandit signs have been a tremendous moneymaker for me. And one of the things that I've said in the past, and I'll say right now is, I take McDonald's, I take Home Depot, I take Lowe's, I take all these national mega corporations, right? These brands, and I utilize their millions of dollars that they've spent on the marketing. Where are they gonna put their stores, right? The highest traffic areas, the places that they can get the most eyes on them, that the cars are going to turn into the most, right? And because of that, that's where we plop down our signs. And that just goes for your competition in your market. See what they're doing, see what's working for them, and then use that.
Absolutely. I completely agree. So Mike, you kind of referenced doing some things wrong. Can you speak to us about maybe some advertising or marketing ventures that you took that didn't pan out the way that you thought that they would?
Of course I can. One of my favorite huge mistakes. I was during my pressure washing world, I also owned a custom motorcycle shop. We used to build custom Harleys and old British bikes. Some really cool stuff. It was called Jailhouse Choppers. You guys can Google that. We ended up selling it right before the economy crashed, which was a great thing. But this was all going on during like Jesse James and the Discovery Channel and West Coast Chopper. So it was really cool. And I love to weld and cut up metal. I just love the smell of burning metal and being creative and just building things. And I found this van on Craigslist. And this van was the van that if you saw this van parked next to the van that said free candy, and there was like a creepy clown inside, you'd go to the creepy clown with the knife and the free candy because this other van was so scary. Like you would walk 3 blocks around it just to not get close to it. That's how creepy this was. But it was cheap, and I bought it. And I bought it, and I brought it to my house, and I got out my Sawzall and my cutout and my cutoff tools, and I chopped the entire back of the van off and turned it into like a pickup truck. And then, if you can imagine, the back section, like the back windows, I moved up to finish off the cab. And it was a van, yet it was a truck. And I called it the Vuck. And I painted it powder blue, kind of like my shirt. And it was beautiful. It had white stripes down, and in red lettering it said All American down on the truck part of the Vuck. And I thought it was going to be a brilliant idea to start a viral marketing campaign, Spot the Vuck. And if you saw the Vuck out, all you had to do was take a picture, post it on your social media, and tag I saw the Vuck. And then you would get a free house wash. Surprisingly enough, I think maybe 3 people actually partook in my viral campaign. So that was something that I invested a lot of time and energy into.
What happened to the Vuck?
I ended up selling it to a guy on Craigslist, and he bought it, and then he put there was a trailer hitch on it, of course, because we would pull I would make some poor employee drive the Vuck around with the trailer on it. I also had at the same time, I also had an 18 van that said, very sad, but we had an 18 van and we had the Vuck, and they were all out on the road pulling trailers and out washing. But yeah, so the Vuck.
That's incredible. I mean, you've also tried a couple other things. You had commercials, you had billboards.
I've done billboards. I've done TV commercials. I've done advertisements in magazines. I've done, I did a video the other day about the Penny Saver, and I used to run ads in the Penny Saver. And now, like, I look back in that, I'm like, why would I have ever thought to advertise in the Penny Saver? Anybody that's reading the Penny Saver isn't my customer. right? It's just like putting bandit signs in front of neighborhoods that clearly aren't going to be purchasing a pressure wash from anybody, let alone, you know, like a super cheap. No, they're just not your customer. They're not spending the money there. So I think it's important as far as your marketing is, obviously, if you know who your ideal target customer is, then you can target them with your marketing. And that's very key. So I made a tremendous amount of mistakes. Man, God, and a lot of it was ego driven. And I look back now and it's very embarrassing. Like there was a film fest in Savannah, and they somehow tricked me into advertising in this magazine. They're like, well, everybody's doing these movie, you know, like poster magazines. And I'm embarrassed to say this, but I'm going to say it because we're family. They did a movie poster of me sitting on it was a Harley Fat Boy. I was in a leather jacket. And instead of the shotgun that Arnold Schwarzenegger had on the Terminator 2 movie poster, it was me with a pressure washing gun, and it said the Mildew-nator.
Oh,
So
wow, that's really good.
And
Mike.
to my kids, I apologize if any of your friends ever see that. Like, sincerely,
We
I
made some
apologize.
pictures. If we had pictures, I would pop them up on the screen right now.
Well, there are pictures.
Oh God, man! So a quick Google search might
I
find
hope not.
it. I hope not. Yeah. Wow, Mike, that's pretty good, man. So none of those really panned out very well, huh?
I mean, they all contributed to the brand. They contributed to, you know, getting your name out there. You know, any marketing is good marketing, but most marketing, unless it's completely targeted, you know, focused on, you know, who your ideal customer is, then it's just a waste of money. A lot of that was about branding, not so much marketing, which is very important as well.
I want to talk a little bit about the lawn care business because you sold your lawn care business. Can you tell us why and kind of talk a little bit about lawn care versus pressure washing?
Sure. So, lawn care is not nearly as profitable as pressure washing. And now landscaping is a different game, right? There's landscapers out there and they do incredibly well. And I'm sure there's a bunch of lawn care guys out there that were, you know, 10 times bigger than me that were absolutely killing it. But I was just running, you know, a few crews, usually 2 to 3 crews. And it was just not as profitable as pressure washing. It was good money. But it was a lot more employees, a lot more moving parts in vehicles, trailers, equipment, lots more equipment than pressure washing. And so inevitably there was always something broken. And when you have so many employees, people don't take care of your things like you would. And as an owner operator, you know your stuff is going to be well taken care of. As somebody that has a lot of employees, you're hoping that they take care of your stuff so you don't have to continually be replacing or repairing. And it just I had the lawn care business for about 12 years. And then I had just made the decision. I mean, you and I talked about it prior to me doing it. And there was a certain goal that I had in my mind for some things that if I hit these specific numbers, then I was just going to, the thought process was I was going to sell it. But if I hit these specific goals, I would be more than happy just to walk away, just shut it down, you know, and walk away from all that money because the goals that I had set were going to, you know, replace and whatever. So with all that being said, I just decided, you know, I was going to throw it out there. I called probably 15 or 20 different landscape companies in my market, told them that I was going to be closing the doors and, you know, I was selling the business. I eventually ended up just selling the accounts. So I sold all the accounts to one guy, and he's doing well now. And I had 2 storage units full of all the equipment from 2 huge enclosed trailers, 2 open trailers, just tons of stuff, 0 turns, backpack. I mean, you name it, shovels and rakes, and just overwhelming. And for I sold it January 1. And I think it was just about a month or so ago, I find the guy that I just had a paver patio put in the backyard. And he and I were talking, and I was trying to sell it to him. This was before I sold him. And then I ran into him. He's like, "Hey, did you ever sell your business?" And I say, "I sold all the accounts." He's like, "What about the equipment?" And I was like, "No, I still got it." He's like, "I want it all." And so we went up there and he looked at everything. We agreed upon a price and he gave me a stack of cash. And so that was awesome because I was not looking forward to trying to piece all this out.
With the two businesses that you really had all the bases covered, right? So like with like the lawn care landscaping business, you had reoccurring customers, which were more consistent, but you had less profit margin. And on the pressure washing side, you had, customers that need to be serviced once a year, but much higher profit margin. So
Right.
you kind of had like the whole playing field covered. So I love that. I want you to talk about one of the stipulations within the deal for your lawn company. What did you make them do, Mike, that you told me about?
What they have to do my yard forever.
Did you get that in writing?
Yeah, it was more of a gentleman's agreement. But
Just throwing your
and
hand
I
in.
mean, what happens if he goes out of business? I'm not going to force the guy, but they do amazing work.
How have they been doing since you sold the company?
They're doing really well. In fact, he just texted me the other day and he was like, "Hey, did you sell any of that equipment?" I was like, "I sold it all." And he's like, "Damn." He goes, "I'm about to add on another crew."
No, I mean with regards to servicing your lawn.
Oh no, they're good.
Yeah.
He missed a day, but he texted me like he's way better than I was. Like if we missed a day, I was like, yeah, whatever. Like
Yep,
we'll be
they'll
there
figure it
tomorrow.
out.
But like he's awesome. Like young and on top of it.
Right. Okay. Beautiful. I got another question for us, Mike. This guy's 15, starting a pressure washing business. Do we have any tips for him on door knocking or door knocking marketing?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is something that is unbelievably important. And I get this question, and I know you do all the time from young people that are out there. Just because you're young, that doesn't mean you have to be cheap. Okay. If you're 15 and you have a pressure washer and you can go clean somebody's driveway, you don't have to do it for $50 just because you're 15. Charge $150 or $200 because that's what they would pay if they called, someone else that, is in business. So that would be my biggest recommendation is do not be afraid to charge accordingly. Yeah, your overhead's low. You don't have to pay for rent. You don't have to pay for it. You're 15. You can't even drive. But there's all kinds of things, that you're doing that the homeowner doesn't want to do. So don't just give it away, right? Yeah, $50 is awesome to a 15-year-old, but 200 is even better. So don't kill the market for people that have families to feed. And as far as going door to door, present yourself with professionalism. Introduce yourself, look them in the eye, tell them that you are in the neighborhood. Your name is whatever. You're 15 years old, and you would love to clean their house. You'd love to clean their driveway. It's going to be a tough sell, I think, just because of your age. But kudos to you for getting out there and doing it. Like that's awesome.
And that's why I would say be diversified. Don't solely offer pressure washing. Offer, to pick the weeds or walk the dogs or trim the shrubs or whatever little service that you can do to kind of get your foot in the door, build the trust, and then leverage it into more services after that. So like I recently had 2 kids come to my door the other day and they're like, "Hey, can we pressure wash your driveway?" And I was like, "No, I don't really want," because like there's a trust thing, right? Like a home is someone's most valuable asset. So are they going to be as trusting on the home? I was like, "No, but I do need the beds weeded. Would you guys want to do that?" So they're like, "Yeah, would you give us $40?" I said, "Perfect." So they went out there about an hour, weeded everything. I handed them $40 and there you go. And like, I got his number. So if I needed something else done around the house, I just give him a call and say, "Hey, do you want to come knock this out?" So don't limit yourself to one service. Get your foot in the door with whatever you can first and foremost. And then say, if you guys need anything else in the future, let me know. And then follow up with them. Right, Mike? Like, a month or 2 goes by. "Hey, Miss Cheryl, I came by and weeded your beds. Like, do you need anything else done?"
Yeah.
And you can be incessant because you're a kid. Like you can get away with things that like adults can't get away with. You know what I mean? Like, so that's my advice.
Yeah.
We do have a super chat from my buddy Austin. He says, "Hustle hard and get that money, baby. Love you long time." Thank you, Austin. Appreciate it, man. Absolutely. Mike, last thing that I want to cover before I let you go I got 2 things really. First and foremost, though, what are the major components of build? Because this was all about talking about how to build $1 million business. What are the major components of building a successful pressure washing company and building it up?
Yeah, well, we've already touched on 2, which was your lead flow, right? Lead flow equals cash flow. If you don't have the leads, you're not working and you're not making money, so you're not going to make anything, happen as far as that goes. So work on your marketing, figure that out, and you can do that in a ton of different ways. And we're not going to get into the weeds as far as how you market your pressure washing business, but you have to have the lead flow. The second was hiring the right people or being the right person. Whether you're hiring the right people, it's all about representing your company with professionalism. Customer service is paramount, things of that nature. But the third is, in my opinion, automation. And I'm a huge proponent of automating everything you can possibly do. And obviously, I'm not talking about working. Like the actual function of pressure washing. I'm talking about your business, the business side of things, your email automation, your follow-up sequences, your invoicing. I'd mentioned Responsibid earlier. Responsibid is something that allows you to have a 24-hour quoting system, salesperson working for you all the time, which is absolutely huge. So automation is something that I think is essential. And, a little bit of that goes back to like the remote quoting, right? Like that's not automated, so to say, but it's utilizing technology to eliminate tasks that are time consuming, which detract from you spending time on other things like the marketing of your business, like increasing your lead flow, right? So those are the things that I would work on. Lead flow, presenting yourself, whether, like I said, it's yourself or your customers. And then, of course, streamlining the back end, your automation.
Absolutely. I completely agree with that. And just kind of taking things off your plate, like you mentioned. There's no way solo you're going to get to be as big as you want. You can get big enough to feed your family and provide a good life for everybody, but running everything by yourself is, it'll really wear down on you. So, Mike, you've done a great job with building in tools and things to help you along the way. Last question for you. You tried to hire a homeless man to come and be an employee. Can you speak to us a little bit about that?
I love the homeless, Justin. And
You do. You have an infatuation with the homeless. You try to help them with their marketing, Mike. You try to bring them on and give them jobs. So,
right. I think, there was a guy that was the one that was living in my van.
Yeah, there was a couple of them, right? There, you helped one start a window cleaning business.
Right.
I don't know if he was homeless. I don't think.
Well, I will have a follow up on that because that gentleman apparently is also trying to start a cell phone business of some sort because he's looking for free phones now.
Who is
no
this?
longer the guy that I gave all the window cleaning
stuff. Was he out there with a sign that said trying to start a phone?
He's I don't know if he's flipping phones or he's taking phones that people give him and then walking into the grocery store and that, they've got those things now where you can put in your phone and get cash.
Right. Work smarter, not harder.
I think that's what he's doing. Because I've got like 5 phones on my desk right now that like they're just sitting there that I should probably go and recycle.
Are you going to go get your window cleaning equipment back from him?
I thought about it. That would be a good video.
I took my window cleaning equipment back.
This guy's not even starting a business. But
right.
So I made a little short about this one too, but I had gone up to, this is years ago, I'd gone up to the yard where I keep all of my equipment, and we had a bunch of these white vans that we would use for window cleaning and other stuff. And I was looking for something, and I opened up the sliding back door, and I know where I'm looking, which is down on the ground because I knew where what I was looking for was. And I opened it up, and there was a dude that was sleeping in the driver's seat, and he jumped up and was like all startled. I jumped and was all startled, and we just kind of look at each other, and he's like, "Hey," and I was like, "Hey," and he goes, "Yeah." He said, "Is this your van?" I was like, "It is my van," and he said, "Yeah." He said, "I'm homeless. It was really cold out, and I don't have anywhere to go." He goes, "I've been living in the woods behind Kroger, which is a grocery store. And I've been in there, the only food that I get, I steal the beef jerky from there. And I've been living off that." And the dude had like a little fire, like he built a fire and
in the van.
No, not in the van, outside the van. And he used one of my, the car jacks, like a floor jack, to lift up the fence so he could get under it easier. And I offered him a job, and I was like, "Hey man," I was like, "If you, obviously, you're down on your luck. If I need people to work. Do you want a job?" And he was like, "No, I'm good." I was like, "Are you?"
Some people enjoy that life, I think, and I think that's, that's all they want.
Yeah. There's a lot to it. And that's why I try to help them with their marketing.
Right. Tell them that their signs need a call to action and whatnot.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Mike, we provided. I think you gave some great value on this, man. A lot of people could take a lot from this. So let's do a word of the day, though. If anybody watches the replay this far back, what's the word of the day on this one?
I think the word of the day should have something to do with I don't know, the undisputed YouTube pressure washing champion of the world.
Now we're talking. So what is it? Is it undisputed? If you made it
Undisputed.
If you made it this far in the video, comment down below undisputed and I'll hashtag you a real one. My name is Justin. This is Forever Self-Employed. If you guys haven't checked out Mike Vidan's channel, check it out. All about pressure washing. It is the best pressure washing channel on YouTube, or so he claims. Who knows? Anyway, we'll catch you guys in the next one. Thanks so much for joining us on this one.
See y'all
later.